What's going on? Boys, today we are talking about a whole bunch of stuff: belief, attitude, natural forces, Baldur's Gate 3, love, and maybe a few other things. Many Men is one of my favorite songs, and today I stumbled across the Lil TJ version called Face Shot, and I like that one a whole lot more. I mean, the original is an entire feeling. That's why I like it. I like 50 Cent quite a lot as a dude. I'm not attuned well to that scene, but everything I've seen and heard about 50, I like him. I liked him, or I like hearing about him in the Patrice tapes. But I really like art that feels like it has clawed its way out of someone's stomach and is communicating something personal or niche or unadulterated. That's one of the reasons I like incelcore so much. I used to think that name for the genre didn't well or completely reflect what's going on with that sound, with that feeling, but I've come to like it because it's perfect. It's ugly. Those artists deal with an array of ugly circumstances and emotions. And ideologically, the fact there is such a divide in that sound between loser authoritarians and loser, I don't want to say anarchists, but anti establishment people makes it even better. And I've been listening to Face Shot on repeat for the last 3 hours, maybe, because it captures that unadorned reality of what someone is feeling very well. It's a snapshot of a certain sort of person with a certain set of emotions in a certain set of circumstances. A snapshot of someone who is funny but aggressive and not giving up following getting shot 7 times. Now, the reason I bring all this up is a shift in attitude socially. Although that drive is there, I don't need everyone to like me anymore. But I'm finding if people don't like me, then I need them to dislike me a lot. Originally, I needed everyone to like me because I believed that was the only way to get anywhere and to stay safe. But I'm learning if some people really hate you, then you can use that to advantage yourself. And this all feels odd. Having open conflict with people and defending your pride or defending against disrespect. I'm not used to that. And when I look at it from the outside, as much as anyone can, it feels insane. Because I am just as terrified of things going wrong and of consequences of conflict as I've always been, but when I'm in these moments, I'm not thinking about that at all. In fact, it feels like someone else is at the wheel. It's exciting, it's scary, and it's interesting. Where did this come from? Well, I can think of 45 super reasons why this change of attitude might have developed, but I think the primary one is contemplation, which is odd but shouldn't be surprising. Something I learned in my education is never begin a study, an investigation, an extended research session thinking you know where you're going to end up, or with a specific destination in mind, somewhere you want to get. You are almost never going to end up there. Instead, you start with a concept or an observation or a loose hypothesis, loose thesis statement, and then research your way, meander around until you find the conclusion you needed. The longer you immerse yourself in research, the more likely that answer will reveal itself to you. And that should be obvious, because anytime you try to research something specifically, especially in obscure texts or resources, you don't get exactly what you want, and you don't get it immediately. You will get an answer eventually, but you may have to sit on your thinking for a while, on your research. You may need to research other things, come back, and so on and so forth. You're waiting for the answer to poke its head out of the tree line at you. We've been doing a bunch of harder thinking the last few months, odder research, and I think this new, erratic, but also powerful, I hesitate to say it because it's shooting yourself in the foot saying anything is positive in any way, but I think it emerged out of that research. And I think that happens when you become more certain of things and feel you are on the correct path, the righteous path. By listening to righteousness, eventually, somehow, you are rewarded with something of note. So, the last few months, we have been thinking a lot about death. The fact you are already dead, but you're still living. You're something in between. It's a spirit, or a ghost, or a revenant, something along those lines. It's a concept, but it's also an image. And thinking about skeletons and liches and all these things. Thinking about how you're gonna die, when you're gonna die, what it means, what your life will have meant when you die, your path toward death. Sitting with the idea for months, looking at all sorts of different things with this idea in the back of your mind. And in thinking about death, that made me think of other forces. And the concept of a force that has been sitting with me for the longest, for years, since I was a little kid, was what Cruelty Squad examined so well: exchange. Strip back everything in reality as far as you can, and you find exchange. Something requires something else to happen. A thing isn't just a thing. A thing is the result of other things working efficiently or inefficiently to produce this thing. Everything exists for a reason that can theoretically be tracked. Everything comes from somewhere. That primal force has informed my life for the longest time, sitting at the base of everything. Death is another force on that level. It's not something to think about. It's not a concept, although it is a concept, but it's reality. It is. In the same way, the exchange is. Nothing a human being builds or says can be trusted. So if you try to build your ego or your soul on top of human stuff, you're doomed to fail. You are doomed to fail no matter what, but choosing instead, or trying instead, to build yourself on these primal truths makes you sturdier if you can work with them. And these sorts of truths feel like their own little religions or fields of study, theories, things that are themselves, but also can function as lenses through which to interpret other truths or the world, the illusion, people, whatever. This is my attempt to figure out what's been going on. The exchange as a founding truth wasn't working for me. So we tried to swap over to death, changing our major. But holy shit, death is a deep rabbit hole. With exchange, after doing just a little bit of work, you can see it, nod, and then get to interpreting. But with death, you see it, and you'll be grappling with it until you die. You can use it as a theory, as an interpretive lens, but death as its own substance is so dense, so impenetrable, you can get lost in it. So while working on death, I started thinking about other truths, other primal forces, a different faith and field of study, because I'm not equipped to work in death. And I think that started when, or with, rather, trying to pin down my own politics. Because generally, I'm anti-establishment to the extreme. But I don't want to live in an anarchist society. I hate the state, but I need a state. I'm sure there's an official word for it, but after sitting on that for a while, I came to the conclusion people generally are either on the side of building things up, and that comes with a propensity to control and corrupt, or people are on the side of tearing things down or checking things, and that comes with a propensity for destruction. What the authority types are building doesn't matter. They are going to build something to try to get everything in line, according to the way they think things should be in line. And then anti-establishment, anti-authority people are going either to prune the bad parts of whatever is being built, or they're going to tear it all down. But, again, doesn't matter. There's no single utopia to achieve. It's just a balance of forces. And in an orderly way, I'm in the tearing shit down camp. Because people and their organizations may start pure, but they sour over time. And while people die, they can pass on their beliefs, brainwash people, and prop up a system that has long soured. But how do you translate that into a theoretical political party or ideology? Well, the loose one I put together is focusing on change. Because change is inevitable. things always fall apart and then are built back up into different things, or via exchange become different things altogether. So, in a very impractical way, this party would be aligned with the primal force or the truth of change, and it would perpetually fuck up systems, get rid of people who have soured, and transform or tear down systems that have long soured so that sourness doesn't last so long. Something better can replace it. And what replaces it doesn't matter at all. Because people are going to learn to game that as well, and will also eventually need to be torn down and changed into something completely different again. And it doesn't matter that this political party is stupid and wouldn't work and will never exist, because that ideology is already happening, and there's nothing you can do about it. At some point, everything will fall apart and it will become something different. And the fact that it will, with or without conscious effort, makes that belief or that ideology more powerful, in my view, because you aren't required, because it's a force. I'm not an eco person, but I get those force vibes from eco people. They have built themselves off something eternal. And I know you're thinking, nature isn't eternal, nature dies, but that's living nature. Other nature doesn't. That's why I think I get those vibes off those eco people, because it's not all living nature. And again, this is all trying to figure out what's been happening. Because you can do any number of things for years without really understanding why you're doing them. I think investigating eternal truths, forces beyond life, is part of where this erratic confidence came from. It's the confidence that comes with knowing you are aligned with something that cannot be beaten, even though you cannot control it, and it will play a part in your destruction, your annihilation. Something takes over and sometimes makes me speak up when someone says a shitty little thing to me or gives me an extended nasty look, because although I might be breakable, I'm built on something that is unbreakable. My outlook is founded on something all the nations of the world can't destroy. Something that will destroy all nations of the world eventually. You are slowly becoming a blood cell within one of the beings organizing the simulation. I think that's one of the reasons capital is so effective, so sentient, like an organism living using people. Exchange is going to happen with or without you, no matter what you do. You can try to organize to prevent exchange or to limit it, but you're using exchange to try to limit exchange. You can't beat it. The same way you can't beat death, the same way you can't beat change, transformation, whatever you want to call it. That confidence comes from realizing you are beginning to channel the universe, or you are opening yourself up to be channeled. Either way, you are developing a conscious connection with your strings. And I haven't worked all this out yet, but being a scholar of change feels a lot more palatable than being a scholar of death. Jumping from exchange to death was like jumping out of a plane and expecting to connect with anything. Not that you can't. We're not going to stop thinking about death or studying it or reflecting on it, but change feels a lot better and allows you to have a little more of that illusion of power that you don't have, but change does. So this is an order development video, meaning I think becoming acquainted with these forces and studying them and studying with them in mind is the path to some sort of something, whether that's power, peace, I don't know, but something. Attuning your soul to one of these forces attuning your soul to one of these forces makes shit flow through you. And again, you don't have to go hard for something specific because you're not going to get anywhere. All you need to do is compost your spirit and mind consciously. Okay, now, Baldur's Gate 3. I was considering making a separate video for this topic, but I haven't finished the game, and that's a really popular topic at the moment, and I don't want to risk Baldur's Gate people showing up on my channel. But I still want to talk about it. So, because Baldur's Gate 3 is right now, again, haven't beaten it, I'm about halfway through, up there in the best games I've ever played list. Nothing is ever going to top Disco Elysium, but this is in there. This is up there with New Vegas for me. And I am normally not a person who cares about spoilers, but in this instance, if you don't want to get spoiled for anything, leave, and please don't spoil anything for me. This is one of those things that you're going to wish you were able to play for the first time again. And I was stupid because I don't really like Larry and the developers that much. I didn't like either of the Divinity games. I was not expecting to like this one, so I didn't buy it, but I watched a bunch of YouTube videos on it spoiling some things here and there, and I wish I didn't do that. So, spoiler warning. People throw Notes from the Underground in my face pretty regularly as an insult, meaning while my viewers are cunty, they are at least informed cunty, and I looked into Notes from the Underground and the Underground Man, and while I think that doesn't stick as an insult, because I used to do it a lot more when I was younger, but still, to this day, every so often, doing wacky shit, just very stupid things that you know are going to end badly, just to try to make change or just to see what's going to happen, because what is going on isn't working very well. That's why I don't think it sticks overall, even though, yes, it is a pretty brutal comparison. The one that I think does stick comes in the form of romance. I don't give relationships chances anymore. It takes either someone making the first move and being okay, or the person being so good that I don't mind risking a loss. I.e., very rarely. Because it seems like maybe it's different in different cultures, but at least in the States, women are less inclined to approach you, and I'm not impressed with many people enough to go out of my way for them. So they'll drop hints to try to get you to make the first move. And one, I'm not good at picking up on hints. And when those hints are so blatant that I'm pretty sure they are hints and I can't ignore them, that comes across as pathetic to me, and I shoot them down. The example, the most recent major example I've been sitting on for some time, was my former boss. I don't know if it came across the few times I mentioned her back when I was talking about that place, but I was into her. But she was like a clown mirror version of the sort of woman I would risk for. She was managing an organization that she left and is going to fail without her. I haven't met another person capable of pulling off what she was pulling off. It was crazy. And I think she was able to pull it off because she was crazy. And not in a bad way, but just enough that I couldn't figure out what she was ever going to do in any given situation. So I wasn't willing to put myself in a situation with her. If she had approached me, that would have been different, but she didn't. What she did, I'm pretty sure, was hint a lot often, which made me react in my typical way, which was negative, cold, looking down my nose. Why are you hinting? If you really want something, get it. If you don't, keep your mouth shut, which is what I did. I didn't really want her. At least not enough to take that risk on someone I didn't view as stable. Which sucked, because if it weren't for those few things, I was really into her. I can't understate it. She's one of the most effective people I've ever met. She's just erratic and insane to the point I that's risky. That is so unfortunately risky. But Underground Man made me start thinking, did I fuck up? Like, should I have initiated despite what my gut was telling me, and make that one of those instances you're doing something you know is going to end poorly just to incite change and see what happens. Which, again, never, ever ends well. But was that one of those instances you should have done it anyway? And that's where Baldur's Gate 3 comes in, with some of the most human writing I have ever read played in a game. Again, nothing is going to beat Disco Elysium, but in certain ways, particularly in, I don't want to say characterization, this is hard to explain. Disco Elysium is perfect. You can't beat Disco Elysium. But Baldur's Gate 3 does things with its characters. There's so much nuance to them. And Disco Elysium does that too, but I think Baldur's Gate actually might do it better in some spots. Disco Elysium does it better in the sense of speaking with a person, but Baldur's Gate 3 does it better in the sense of presenting a person, a complete picture of a person. It's difficult, comparing them as worthless. Let's get to the meat of what we're talking about. Your heart isn't cold, you aren't stupid, you just haven't found the correctly compatible person in reality yet. But they are out there because Minthara is the most. Oh god. Holy shit. I mean, it's. Every single character in Baldur's Gate 3 is written to perfection. Perfection. But I haven't found anywhere, any piece of media, that fits or presents the exact sort of woman my soul has been looking for forever. In games, I am so used to characters, companions being written so poorly, you're struggling to connect with them even if you want to. But then you step into Baldur's Gate 3, and every single one of them is written so well, you can't help but connect with them on an emotional level. And then once you've connected with them on an emotional level, there's so many layers of them to explore. And it's one of these games that lets you, I mean, it does a lot of things intentionally, but it also lets you actually roleplay. So my party has become this odd approximation of a family. And we'll do a little typology on these three too. Starting with Lae'zel. When I started, I thought she was going to be the grumpy, aggressive caricature of a romance option I normally fall into in games because there's nothing better. But Lae'zel is a lot deeper than that. It's not that she's all angry all the time, it's that anger is how she has been raised to respond to things, because that's the only way she knows to keep herself safe. So if something good happens, she gets angry and takes the angry take. She feels sad, she gets angry because sadness is weakness. She gets betrayed, she feels angry, obviously, but you can see that hurt coming to the surface, that pain, that suffering, but you also see it get drowned out with anger because that's what she knows. It's never that she feels only one thing, it's that she has been trained and has trained herself to respond to all stimuli with only one emotion because that's the only way she knows to feel safe in harsh environments. Anger and dedication, I should say. And the reason. Oh boy, hold on. So, Baldur's Gate 3, again, only halfway through it. I'm kind of starting to piece it together. It's not a story about saving the world necessarily. It's a story about people who are betrayed by their institutions or their beliefs, and the need to locate themselves in this. I don't want to say post truth, but post anti authority conception of the world. Everyone is betrayed. The real narrative struggle is trying to figure out how you're going to keep your soul intact following your ego essentially dissolving and whom you're going to become. Lae'zel didn't work for me as a romance option despite liking her a lot because I had to guide her, your player character, if you want to go down this path, has to hold Lae'zel's hand through realizing that she's been being bullshitted her entire life, and she'll fight you tooth and nail every step of the way. And that's understandable, and you do it because you care about this character, but that's really not attractive, and that feels like a mean thing to say, but it's true. And that's one of my that's so fun. Thinking about characters is so fun. Realizing this warrior frog woman is actually more like your little sister. You're trying to help out through a hard time, despite presenting as what she is. And you do see that more on the nose with characters like Karlak, who annoys the shit out of me. People presenting as one thing but being another thing. With Lae'zel, it's that, but you have to look harder for it. But, and it's not like this is a mistake, because Minthara, my wife, my beloved, she takes on this oh so faintly motherly role toward Lae'zel, despite both of them being grown women, and encouraging you not to reduce her, Lae'zel, to her anger and her brutish culture. Minthara admires her and sort of mothers her, telling you there's a lot more to this, to this woman. Don't don't get stuck on superficialities. Look a little bit deeper. And it's true and it's lovable, but it's not attractive. So we have the party's daughter, basically, who is trying to figure out who she is and what she's about and not handling it well, but making it with her adoptive family's support. So then you have Shadowheart, who is another one of my favorite characters in gaming in a long time. They're all my favorite characters in gaming in a long time. Every single one of them. From my point of view, Shadowheart is the ultimate bro, the ultimate your boy. Despite the fact they present her as this very traditionally attractive, kinky woman, I don't get lust vibes off her, personally. I get that's my boy vibes. So if Lae'zel was an ESTJ, then from where I'm sitting right now, maybe it'll change or maybe my opinion will change later. I'm pretty sure Shadowheart is an ISTP. Lae'zel's an ESTJ, and a very traditional one. Shadowheart is a very ISTP ass ISTP. And what I mean by that is she looks at the world with a very TI perspective. And every component of her character is reasoned. She reasons through everything. And frankly, I agree with almost all of her reasoning in every situation. And she's also one of the kindest or most charitable characters, but also willing, not happily, but willing to do bad things that need to be done, which is another interesting dynamic. That kindness and that practical coldness. But anyway, the reason I keep calling her your boy is, you know that video of Vegeta and Goku, and the caption is, guy with his girl, I can't read your mind, you have to tell me what you want, I'm not a mind reader, and then guy with his boys, and it's just Goku and Vegeta. Something happens, they look at each other for about 7 seconds, both of them nod, and then go off to do their own things. With Shadowheart, it's never... I never feel like I have to convince her of anything. She knows the truth. It's more like... or like when Patrice. So Patrice in his home had a dark room with 2 recliners. He and his boys, one boy at a time, go in, sit down, and talk through shit. Try to come closer to the truth. That's what it feels like with Shadowheart. trying to, not trying to convince her to do the right thing because she knows what she needs to do, more like being her own internal voice or conscience for her and then receiving that in kind. Your boy. I have never played a game that has that level of ya boyness. I mean, Kim Kitsuragi is up there, but he's like, it's a different sort of ya boy. Shadowheart's a more bro-y ya boy. I would categorize that connection more as mutual advising. So you have Lae'zel, your daughter, you have Shadowheart, your boy, and then you have Minthara, your wife. Like, they got it. I don't know how, but they got it. They captured something I've always believed exists, and I have been in connection with, but not to that level. So we'll start at the end and move back toward the beginning, I guess, in this one. I never, or role playing my character, I never feel like I have to guide Minthara or advise Minthara, ever. She's confident enough in her own reasoning, she's actualized enough to know what she wants and not need to have her hand held or to be encouraged to do what she wants. She knows what she wants and she's going to do it, with or without you. And that sounds like a hard-ass characterization. Looking at Minthara, you would think she'd be characterized as this unfeeling hard-ass, but she's really not. She's this gestalt figure of hardness and vulnerability together. Not even as like a balance, but both at the same time. One of my favorite examples, you are, a recent example actually, I'm halfway through. You are in a situation, people are trying hard to rattle you. And you can notice Minthara is afraid, but faking confidence. And you can call her on it. And you would expect the conversation, when you see that conversation option, you would expect it to turn out, hey, it's okay to be afraid. And then Minthara goes, okay, yeah, it's okay to be afraid. Or, no, I'm not afraid at all. And it's not. Her answer is, of course I'm pretending not to be afraid, because that's what they want. I'm terrified. And the fact you can see I'm terrified terrifies me. But if you are concerned with my emotional state, then promise me you are not going to let anything bad happen to me. Okay? Good. Back to it. Stiff upper lip. And that is so real. That is so how an actualized or actualizing ENTJ woman is. How are you at once hard and practical enough to be faking your affect for strategic reasons, yet soft and impractical enough to ask to be protected by someone you know can't protect you? What? What is that? What is that? I've run into that before, but that's rare. That's some... What's a very rare earth metal? Plutonium? That's some plutonium grade emotion right there. And the reason this sort of characterization works so well is they are relentlessly real in surprising ways with all their characters, but for me, Minthara hit the hardest. There's an instance early in the game when Minthara is a bit out of her element, out of her mind. You do some fucked up stuff together, which I wasn't even expecting to end up doing, but I hate druids, and they lied, and they're just nasty. And if it means killing some refugees to kill the druids, sorry. Gotta make Uncle Teddy disappointed. And it really is gruesome. That scene is really fucked up. But later, Minthara calls you on it, which I was not expecting at all. Hey, before we go any further, you remember that really fucked up thing we did? I had an excuse. You didn't. Why? And if you give her the real practical reason, she approves because she's a practical thinker. Cold in that way, but not that cold, because if you give her a sadistic answer, she disapproves. She's a little bit disgusted. Because cold strategy toward pragmatic, positive ends, what most people would consider evil, she's okay with as long as it is practical, pragmatic, and trying to achieve a good end for everyone. She does not approve of sadism because she has been broken repeatedly by sadists. And while that shades of evil dynamic is interesting in and of itself, it's especially interesting and attractive because she knows where she falls in all this and why. She has rational and emotional reasoning for what she does and why she does it. You cannot reduce her. She defies simple reduction. And I think that's especially fitting because in a game, meta-wise, I guess, about feeling betrayed and losing yourself, she's one of the most broken and most lost, but has either developed or maintained that sense of self already better than anyone. And again, just so how the highest end ENTJ women actually are. It's absurd. This synthesis of rationality and irrationality, of cold practicality and vulnerable lovingness. I don't understand how anyone is able to pull this off. And the wider narrative, at least the way I'm presently interpreting it, has gone from saving the world for everyone to leaving humanity behind so people can't hurt us anymore. And it really is a great role-playing experience, because later in the game you have this opportunity, literally, to leave your humanity behind. To become partially a grotesque, ugly thing in the name of achieving more power. And on some level, you just know it's going to end horribly. But this is the best shot of never being hurt again, or controlled again, or lied to again there is. So of course, I have my dude go through with it, but I haven't had anyone else go through with any of this process at all. Now, Minthara is a little bit different, because when she joins your party, she has already partaken a little bit, but she hasn't gone into the freak zone, the hideousness zone. And I went around the camp, and every single character gave me good reasons why they didn't want to go through with this really irreversible change. And especially Astarion, actually, that was heart-wrenching. He goes from starting wanting to embrace this power until he realizes it's going to turn him into something else, and the most gut-wrenching line, I don't want to turn into anything else. I'm sorry. Anyway, with every other character, if you want to try to make them go through with it, which I didn't, it's a speech check. You have to convince them. With Minthara, there's no convincing. You just say, This is a key to one potential key, never to be controlled again. And she says, say less. And I am a sucker for a good romance. It's two people becoming ugly together, leaving their humanity behind together, knowing full well there is almost certainly no way this ends well, but having seen how things always go otherwise, you have to take that chance. You have to swing for the fences. Other people would never even get onto the ball field, much less get a ball and a bat. You have to swing for the fences. And the other thing I've found, ENTJ women tend to have this innate, just great, emotionally fulfilling understanding of, is the understanding of masculine affection. I watched in a video recently, a dude put it into words perfectly. Men express affection not as affection, but as validation, approval, or pride. Saying I love you might mean something, but that's not going to hit in the heart as well as you did a good job. And there's an instance at a circus, you can do a, what would you call it, like a romance strength test thing for fun. And there's a question, you have to figure it's a test of how well you know your partner. One of the questions was, who does your partner admire most? You have a list, and one of the options is saying she admires you more than anybody else, but there's also one that says she admires nobody more than anybody else. Or, yeah, she admires nobody. And I chose that one because, to me, that seemed like it suited her. As in, she's been broken or beaten so many times and left alone so many times. That's why she ended up in this cult to begin with. That, and she survived basically all on her own. Of course, she's not going to admire anybody. So you pick nobody, and her response is, I appreciate the sentiment, but I wouldn't be traveling with you if I didn't admire you. And that, oh my god, that hit in the heart so hard. So hard. I know I'm dragging this out, but Baldur's Gate 3 is really spectacular. You really, I mean, if you ignored the spoiler warning, I haven't spoiled all that much. You really should play it. There is not much better at all. And the characterization, there's so much to think about. I'm only halfway through and there is so much to think about. And these people are so real. And they are so viscerally real in a way that you shouldn't be able to write this. You know, this shouldn't be able to be fabricated. This is something that should be only in the wild or not at all. This couldn't be invented, but it is. I don't know how they did it. And I needed to simp for 20 minutes over my fictional life that reignited passion in my soul that hasn't been there for an increasing number of years. And ultimately, no, you shouldn't take a risk on a real life relationship when your real wife exists digitally. And holy, I can't. I'm joking, but I'm also not. That is human. That is so human, and people don't pull it off. I'm in awe. I am in awe. But that about rippity wraps this one up. I hope you enjoyed watching, because I certainly enjoyed making it. Thank God for order development videos. I have no idea how I would be able to make... I needed to get that simping session off my chest. I haven't felt that way in a long time. I needed to get it out. Thank God for this format. Like if you enjoyed, because it helps me out a lot. Subscribe if you haven't, because we do this shit sometimes. And comment your thoughts, because I love hearing from you. What do you think about primal forces or your digital soulmates? Approximations of people you know actually are out there because you've gotten pretty close to that, but never that well actualized, and not in a long time. That's how much we have on this channel. And oh shit, no. Thanks again for watching, everybody. Really, we have a lot of fun on this channel. So much fun, in fact, you can pack it into a tin and stick it in your backpack and bust it out when you need some fun. Because that's how much we have on this channel, and I look forward to doing this with you guys again in the future.